All right, I'll get started. So we're get out of here in good shape. All right, so the first thing he talks about is competitive markets. And all you need to know is that's just a group of buyers and sellers. The big thing about competitive markets is that, if you want to shoot this right there, that if one or two buyers leave the market or one or two sellers leave the market, it doesn't matter. Just think of thousands and thousands of buyers and sellers. So if one or two leaves, it doesn't change anything. Then he talked about like competitive markets and otherwise. The two markets you should know is like monopoly. A monopoly is one company dominating the industry. Like cable TV was a monopoly. The Ravens are a monopoly of NFL football in Baltimore. Like there's no other NFL football team in Baltimore. All right. And then oligopoly. That's 10 or fewer companies. All right, so you have an oligopoly, 10 or fewer, a monopoly, 1, and then competitive markets, which are thousands. All right. And again, for the competitive markets, if one or two people leave, it doesn't make any difference. And then starting with like demand, just remember change in demand, a shift in demand, an increase or decrease in demand, that shifts the whole curve. Where like quantity demanded is just a change up or down this line. Okay. Now, quantity demanded could change due to two things. One, a change in price, and the second, a change in supply. Because if supply, say, shifts this way, quantity demanded changes. Okay. Read carefully, because they're going to give you things that says an increase in demand, an increase in quantity demanded. Just make sure if it's an increase in demand, that curve has to shift. All right. Income. There are two types of income. One is a normal good. Normal good, income increases, demand increases, which makes sense, right? You make more money, you're going to buy more stuff. Income decreases, demand decreases. The second is an inferior good. An inferior good is income increases, demand decreases. Income increases, demand decreases.
So for the normal and inferior goods, demand increases based on obviously the income of people, just the supply increase?
No, just a demand shifter. Okay. Now, you do not have to be an authority on what's an inferior good and what's a normal good. They will tell you. They'll usually put it like a hamburger, a normal good. Go on.
And then when you're looking at quantity shifters, I know price is just a quantity shifter. When you say just change in supply is a quantity shifter? Or what
For demand.
Oh, for demand?
Because here, just for this reason, like I said before, supply shifts like this way, price changes, so quantity demanded changes. Okay? All right. Then we're in substitutes and complements. There's a page if you want to follow. Substitutes are two goods which an increase in price of A, so two goods which an increase in price of A leads to an increase in demand of B. So two goods which an increase in price of A leads to an increase in demand of B. So how do I like to think of it? I think of Coke and Pepsi. Those are substitutes. So if you increase the price of Pepsi, people are going to buy less Pepsi, so the demand for Coke will increase. All right. Complements are two goods which an increase in price of A, two goods which an increase in price of A leads to a decrease in the demand of B. Leads to a decrease in the demand of B. All right, so substitutes, the price of the substitute and the demand, they go in the same direction. They're directly related. Complements are indirect, they go in reverse. Then complements hot dogs and hot dog buns. If the price of hot dogs go up, people buy less hot dogs, so the demand for buns go down. All right, taste, what's trending? Expectations, future price impacts customer choice. So future price. So expectations would be, I think on the practice, like they had a rebate. So all a rebate is like a coupon. So rebate for Ford's like a 3,000 next month. So that means Ford cars are gonna be 3,000 cheaper next month. So the demand for Fords today is gonna decrease because you're gonna wait a month to save 3,000. Okay. There's a sheet if you want it. If you want it. Okay. And then ceteris paribus, all things being the same. So besides the rebate, everything else is staying the same.
And that's for the home below expectation.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Was that for the home below expectation?
Yes. You wisely can try to pronounce it. All right. So then you have shifters of demand, which is timing. All right. You gotta have timer down. So it's taste and preference, which we went over. Income. Remember normal and inferior, we went over. Market size. He doesn't talk about, I don't think. Expectations, which we went over. Related goods, which is substitutes and complements. So you have taste, income, market size, expectation, related goods, substitutes, and complements. There's a sheet if you want. Okay? Quantity supplied. Amount of goods and sellers willing and able to sell. All right? Amount of goods and sellers willing and able to sell. All right. Now, quantity supply changes in two ways. A, price could go up. So I could get a price going up, which we get my quantity supply to shift. Or B, a change in the demand curve. Because if the demand shifts this way, price changes and quantity supply increases. All right, and I know there's definitely questions on the test like that. Demand shifts up, what happens to quantity supply? So in this situation, demand increases, quantity supply increases. All right. Law of supply, they're directly correlated. Price up, quantity supply increases. The reason for that is if price goes up, you make more money, you supply more. The law of supply, yeah. Just for price here again, no shifting. At input prices, I've been calling resources. It's the same thing. Like wages are an input price. Oil.
What did you say for the lowest place if price goes up and then supply?
Law of supply,
Yeah.
price goes up, quantity supplied goes up. Direct correlation. Sorry. Right. Input prices, I've been calling resources, they're the same thing. Like wages as an example, oil as an example. Every cost to make a product is their input price. every cost to make a product. Technology, I think you're familiar with. Expectations depends on future profit. So here, if say the price of ice cream, use ice cream there, is going up next month, suppliers are going to supply less now because they can make more in the future. So expectations depends on future profit. Price of ice cream goes up, like in December, you're going to supply less now and supply more in December. All right, so here you've got, for shifts of supply, you've got rat nest. All right, so you got resource, which is the same as input prices. Alternative production, which by the way, on the quiz, there won't be a question because he doesn't put that down as a shifter. So I'll tell you. Technology, number of sellers, expectations. So resource, alternative production, technology, number of sellers, expectations, subsidies, which is always going to shift supply right at this moment, and taxes, which will shift supply right. Okay. All right. So equilibrium, this is your equilibrium. All right. So what do you know at equilibrium? That both quantity supplied and quantity demanded are equal. All right, which here would be $7. Is the price always equal? No. But quantity supplied and quantity demanded are equal at that one price. All right. Then he talked about how to change or analyze, which we kind of went over. The first thing, is it a supply? Is it rat nest or is it timer? So 3 steps in that. Is it rat nest or is it timer? Is it supply or is it demand? Then which direction? And then what's the impact on price and quantity? So maybe I have a shifter here. So there, okay, it's a shifter of demand. Say income doubled, I shift demand, price, I just did this, price up, right, quantity up. Okay. All right, now, again, here is like the question they're going to ask you. If demand shifts right, what effect does that have on supply? Well, quantity supply increased because you moved up the curve. Okay? And then I think I have a supply shift too, which is just, let's see, do I have a supply shift? Yeah. And here, you would say that there's a decrease in supply, because it's a shift, so it's a decrease in supply, but it's also a decrease in quantity demanded, because we're sliding up the curve. Okay? All right. Any questions? This practice was, yes.
What were the 3 steps to analyzing equilibrium again?
Decide is it supply or demand? Which direction? And then impact on price and quantity. So supply or demand, which direction, impact on price and quantity. And any questions on anything practice quiz?
Practice quiz number 7.
Okay. So supply and demand are both increasing?
That's a shift, right?
Okay. Yeah, so let me just go backwards. All right. So here's a demand shift, right? Price up, quantity up, right? I'm gonna do a supply shift here. So here, price down, quantity up, right?
Yeah.
So, the answer is price may increase, may decrease, or if it's even out, it might stay the same,
Okay.
okay? This is that double shift that we did yesterday.
So you just like separated the shift from like the supply one and the demand.
Say that again.
We did two separate graphs.
Yes, every time it's a double shifter, you gotta do two separate graphs.
Isn't there like a pattern for that or something?
The pattern is that one of these, either price or quantity, will always be indeterminate. Any of the other practice quiz questions or anything anyone has? Do you know, like, this thing, where they give you the 4? You should know each one, how it affects demand and supply. So like A is a shift of demand. So demand increases, quantity supply increases. Because they're definitely asking questions. Those same 4 graphs are on your quiz. They're just gonna ask different questions. All right, and there's just so many questions you could ask. I mean, there's not a million of them. Let me see, is there another type of graph? Oh, figure 410. That graph's probably gonna be on your quiz. Instead of like at $20, think what would happen at 25 or 15. Know what's gonna happen over the equilibrium or under the equilibrium. Again,
Will it say like, when it says, what will happen, like if it's at $20 and it says what will happen at $25, is that like a quantity demand shifter or quantity supply shifter? Like how would you-
that's gonna change both quantity demanded and quantity supplied. Because the price is gonna go up.
So how do you know that it's quantity demand and not quantity supply?
No, it's gonna affect both, so they would ask you, like, what's the change in quantity supply?
Oh, well, I feel then what's change in quantity.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Oh, let me just tell you one last thing. This just occurred to me. All right, so say like demand changes here. The shift changes first, and they would say, if you're here, and all of a sudden, so you're at 1, and now it's at 2. So what happens? People are demanding more, but you have a temporary shortage because you're still at 1. All right? So what happens? Like prices increase, and then quantity supply increases, and you get to the equilibrium. So you have this temporary shortage on a demand shift, and then prices increase and the shortage ends. Now let me just try to get a supply. I think I have the supply one. I know the supply. Let's go this way. All right. Now supply would increase. So you're at 1. You're still at 1, but all of a sudden, tons of milk comes in. So you have so supply increases. So now you have a temporary surplus. All right, and then prices go down, and quantity demanded increases to get to that equilibrium. All right. I think he describes that on the last page or two, and he does, like, I think, a pretty lousy job. All right. We good? All right, I will be definitely in the ARC period 1 and period 4. Okay, and I'll be around. I have period 2 walked through, I think. Didn't do the practice, please do it because it's very similar.
I I've said 3 if you have a preference for grading choices, or we can meet 7-3 tomorrow. I guess if you have those, if you would rather just have the 7-3 today, the grade choices.
Oh, I'm meeting with someone today, so tomorrow.
So, okay,
Okay, thank you.
No, second and third.